episode 6, particularly part 2, I was conscious of the fact that like people might watch this and it might not make sense, which is kind of not really the point. And I feel like even the other episodes do it really easily. Like there's a really digestible point that, you know, you have to make. But then a big part of that is due to the fact that like it's my life, it's confessional, and my life isn't meant to be digestible. And I think in realizing that about myself, I'm just moving the camera around this entire time, keep it still. Realizing that like I'm not someone who's meant to be digestible, even though I feel like I've never ever been digestible, which is really what kind of, again, like what the whole series is about. I think in accepting that, it's changed my life, really, honestly and truly. And that's not all I can say about this episode. I've got notes of things I want to kind of illuminate. Again, this episode and 7 are really why I felt like, okay, you need to do creative commentary, just so like, you know, if people are interested, or even like, what the fuck is that? Like, this is the episode where you're going to get answer to all of this and the whole Power Rangers thing. And if Teenage Dream was really about like looking at what the world makes of us, and whether that what the world makes of us is something that we should accept or not, I think the big thing was religion. And this isn't even in just in terms of like, yes, there's a very like deep personal connection with religion. I was very deep in it like throughout my teenage years. I would say it's like the thing that like made my teenage years in many ways, and why I felt some grief that like I hadn't done enough, or like I'd lost out on a part of my youth. Because I think when you're in this very like religious mindset, it's like, well, Christ could be coming back anytime. So, is it? Yeah, it kind of is that like you just have to live right now. You know, you forego the things of your youth. I also saw religion and original sin as a big part of how the world works, even the world works. And with part 1, the big takeaway, because a lot of this has, again, it's been about alternative forms of knowledge sharing. So like the big thing I wanted people to walk around and be like, okay, like Augustine, know who Augustine is, be able to grasp concepts like original sin and how they shape not just religion but the entirety of society. And in ways, especially being like Black, British, all of these things from an African background, I think critiquing religion is very difficult, which is also why this episode was kind of hard for me to make, in terms of feeling like, okay, like I've done this thing and I've, you know, talked about different things, but religion could be one that people might not necessarily want to hear, particularly if it's like kind of a critique, which is why there is a bit of an eloquence in both episode 1 and 2. And now reflecting on it, I'm like, it's eloquence, but it's like kind of dodging the bullets, because I feel like looking at these episodes, I think there's still a lot of like questions or a lot of things that I'm not talking about in terms of my own personal experiences, and just things that I feel like I would like to or want to say, which is actually kind of the story behind the whole Power Rangers aesthetic. Again, I wanted to, a lot of this series it was about me pushing myself, and I wanted to push myself to be creative and get myself back to a state of creativity that I definitely existed in as a child. And that's why like Power Rangers is part of this. And I was really inspired by WandaVision and how it explores trauma and grief, but then the whole thing of how she uses nostalgia and the things of her youth and her childhood as a way to make sense of the world. And this is what it was for me. I've always wanted to, I loved Power Rangers, I loved Super Sentai, I loved all of it, and I saw just similarities even in like the whole thing of like, you know, being a soldier of the Lord. It's very like the Pentecostal Christianity. It's almost described, and it's funny, like when I explain to people my experiences in church and religion, they'll be like, this reminds me of Harry Potter, and I'm like, yeah, actually. So this is kind of me being able to embrace elements of like religious I know the word, but I just don't know how to say it, fantasism, and finding something that represents me. And I think like, again, like a lot of the footage here, if you watch it now with this understanding, you'll be like, oh, okay, like this does make sense. It's like, I felt like this, you know, I'm a soldier in the army of the Lord. And the Red Ranger is someone who fights, so hopefully you can see that, and that's clear. And that's why then also inspired by WandaVision, it was like this TV show, because Teenage Dream with, you know, episodes, it was a show, but then it's very like a show within a show. So there's that kind of meta commentary within it. And then part two was again the hard thing to create, and the one where it was just like, I think people are going to get this, but people are don't have to, because it's you, and you have to allow people to understand you and the depths of you. You just got to express it in its realist, in its most honest, in its most authentic form. And I feel like I did that quite well. How I saw creating part two is it was almost like an audition tape for this said show, this role that I felt like I was forced to play, or the teenage dream, this thing that what society forces us to play, or our lives force us to play. You know, it was like I was auditioning and interviewing, and that's why, like, for example, certain bits of the footage ended up working really well. There's a bit where I'm like, okay, like, is that good? And how was that? Good? And I think that, like, it is a reflection of this, like, this desire for approval, and this desire to be accepted, and to feel like I'm doing the right thing. But I have to abandon that, and we have to abandon that to, you know, be more authentic versions of ourselves, if that makes sense. But there's also something very like confessional, or like very like death tape. That's kind of how I put it, almost like a someone on death row, and they're reading like their last confession to the world. And I gave myself one time to write it. I wrote this letter of things I wanted to, of what I said, and it was a bit poetic, again, partly because I feel like I was dodging just a little bit. I was mincing my words just a little bit, and I also only gave myself one time to record it, because again, like, making episode 5 and all the anxiety I felt about creating episode 5, and there's this good acting, was just like the fact I'm doing it is enough here. And yeah, I think it makes it feel raw. It's authentic to me, because I do think there's times I'm like, okay, like, you could have emoted, but it's because I don't necessarily know how to attach feelings to things straight, like feelings to, I don't know, maybe part of it's because I've just blocked it out, to be very frank. I've blocked or had to numb myself to a lot of the like pain and hurt I still feel. So just again, it was just the power of getting it out was enough. Do you get what I mean? And as a crippling perfectionist, something I feel like I definitely got from religion and original sin and these things, there was enough power in that. The music, create art, a lot of the stuff I do is around pop culture and music. So the presence of gospel music is very important. Not, again, like personal symbolism, that's all I used to listen to until about 2020, 2021. All I used to listen to was gospel music, and it really informed this rhetoric. And that's why, like, I used I give myself away, I give myself away. I use that because it was like, that's the rhetoric. You give yourself away. My life is not my own. To you I belong. Those are the words I was singing constantly. And of course, that's going to impact how I see myself, how I see myself in relationship with the world, all of those things. And I wanted to just kind of have that in there. And a lot of people, maybe when you see the episode, you won't miss that. But again, it was like, this is the words we grew up singing. So of course, like, this is how we're going to see ourselves. Of course, like, I see the teenage dream and like this whole cry. It was inevitable, you know. And but there's such a performance required from Christianity, or the Christianity I was practicing, or the Christianity I was part of. Like, it's yeah, I'm a vessel. Empty me out, God. Use me, oh God. It's not, nothing I'm doing is really me. It's a performance. And that's why, again, like the TV show element, it's all a performance, and it's all a commentary on that, if that makes sense. And sometimes, again, and a big thing I ask myself is my living in vain? Is all the things I experienced in vain? I don't know if that's it's a conversation I don't want to have, but I don't know. You know, I'm still processing a lot of that, and I think as with this, like, the art that I'm making, I will continue to like expand on that journey. I'll continue to explore these themes, defo. So yeah, but then it's also why I put Jesus Is a Love Song by the Clark Sisters, because again, being stuck in a very like routine performance-based Christianity realizing, accepting that like this isn't how it should be. If Jesus, the camera cut out and I cannot keep being asked to put this back on, so maybe I just like, is this, the line's not great. But yeah, if Jesus is a love song, or life could be, can it be that it was all so simple? If that's the case, like, what the fuck? Because it's not only the people in church, not only the people in school, but it's just society affirming this feeling that we all ain't shit. That's what it says. So, and that's really the whole point of Teenage Dream. And I think like, I'm so proud because if that's the way we end, and that's how we expressed it through the history, the sociology, all of it, but then through myself, that's some really good shit. That's some really good shit. But then a big part of that is in understanding that. Like, I realize if this is not the life I want to live, death is needed. So that's why, again, like, it's an audition tape, but it's almost like, it was like I was putting myself on death row. And to, like, the death row was really just me cutting my hair. And then I did frame it in an interesting way if you watch the rest of the episodes. But yeah, that is why I cut my hair, because I was just like I need to be something different. I've done all this work, and it wasn't even just the work of getting to Teenage Dream. It was the work of going through episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like, it was the work that I was doing for myself that I was like, yeah, this is where things need to go. Shit needs to get weird. I need to just live in the world that I want to live and see it fit, because it's all like, I just, it's all like, I'm just going to leave that for what that is. But, yeah. Episode 6. Thanks for watching.